everyone, and welcome to Listeners Beware, a podcast about all things Goosebumps. My name is Gary.
And I'm Ashley.
And today we are talking about book number 3,
Monster Blood.
The description of the book is blood, blood everywhere. While staying with his weird great Aunt Catherine, Evan visits a funky old toy store and buys a dusty can of monster blood. It's fun to play with at first, and Evan's dog Trigger likes it so much he eats some. But then Evan notices something weird about the green slimy stuff. It seems to be growing and growing and growing. And all that growing has given the monster blood a monstrous appetite, ...
You did that so well. I feel like you should do this professionally. I was invested. I was leaning into it. I've read this, I've watched it, and yet here I am like, ooh, what comes next, Gary?
Hold on, I'll tell you. So Monster Blood, how what's your history with this one?
Okay, so I read it when it originally came out. So to your point, it was end of 92 when they released this, I think, or towards the end, I think it was September 1992. And so I read this as a kid. It was in the library. We had a ton of Goosebumps books. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm usually a textural person, probably because of this book. I'm not into the ooey gooey slimy, but it was a fun book. It was fun. It deviates a little bit from the others, right?
Yeah.
So far, we've had living dead people, not zombies, but zombies.
Shadow zombies.
We've had plant people.
Yep.
And now we've got slimy monsters. And I'm here for it. I love it. He's got a different tone, a different creature in each one. So granted, we're only 3 in, but we've got variety, right?
We do. And I feel like, you know, this early 90s was all the rage for sticky stuff.
Neon and sticky, right?
Neon and sticky, a particular shade of green, if you will. And you know, no doubt tied to the whole Nickelodeon craze and ooze and the slime shampoo and everything that they tried to market based off of Double Dare and things of that nature. And I feel like this book is probably a direct affect of that.
I mean, we're still in the realm of 11, 12-year-olds, and kids love slime. Like, no matter what age, adults love slime, but like, that's never gotten old. And that even to this day, you go into the mall and they have slime stores, literally where you go in and make slime in KitchenAid machines.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So not a surprise we'd have a book about a monster made of ooey gooey slime that, you know, appeals to children because what are the properties of the slime? Like, it's super fast. It bounces high. It bounces off the walls and floor and ceilings and everywhere. And it grows.
And it glows, I think, at times.
And yes. It glows. It glows too. So like, who doesn't want glows, grows, and bounces everywhere?
Absolutely.
So this is the first book in his set of stories that actually has a male protagonist,
That's
right?
true.
Because previously we've had 2, I think they're 12-year-old girls. And now we have a 12-year-old Evan. So still in the same age range.
Right.
And now it's told from the perspective of Evan.
Yes. No siblings in this one, but we're visited by a dog yet again.
RL must have had a really big love for dogs.
I'm guessing so.
Because we do have Trigger. And, you know, I kind of see that as the sibling to Evan.
It's true. Much less sassy than maybe the siblings in previous stories, but.
I mean, we get Andy, and I feel like she serves kind of that, you know, that role of a sibling. You've got the female perspective because I think RL kind of tries to balance that out, right? Having boys and girls so that the demographic is relatable to whoever picks up the book. And so we have Andrea, but she wants to be called Andy. And she's sassy. Andrea is sassy, and she's spunky, and she's not to be messed with. I like her, so.
Yeah, for sure. And we get our first intro to a cat in a Goosebumps story. Great Aunt Catherine. How great is she? Aunt Catherine's cat, Sarah Beth.
But can we pause for a moment on Catherine? Because that is just like, this is where I do think RL really does like channel kids in a way that like adults really don't. Because the way he describes Catherine really is from the perspective of a kid. She's written weird and eccentric and scary, and that's how we view most adults when we're that age. But she's extra. Like she's extra in that world of extra eccentric, like capital E.
Yeah, but I still feel like I had maybe a great aunt or someone who was like her. And so it felt familiar.
No. You had one of those, did you?
I mean, maybe not to such an extreme, but it still, I don't know. It resonated with me. I'll just put it that way.
I just, as an adult, you don't question it as a kid. And we've talked about this before, reading it as an adult versus reading it as a kid. As an adult reading it, I'm just like, those parents really left him with her.
Dad should know better.
Really. And even he was like, yeah, she's weird, but she's nice. Yeah, she's kind of kooky, but whatever, it's fine.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, you're just going to leave your kid with this lady that he barely knows for a few weeks. And that's how we're going to roll. And she's going to leave him mostly unmonitored, right? Like, let's not be confused. This whole monster blood thing happened not because she was deaf, but because she just leaves him alone all the time.
Right. Also, side note, if you haven't read the book, she's deaf, which is kind of an interesting addition to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even when he's doing stuff right, behind her back or while she's downstairs, she can't hear him. And so he's still able to get away with certain things, and the drama and trauma can kind of occur. Like, wow, how does she not hear him being sucked into a tub with slime? Oh yeah, she can't hear.
Right.
But even that aside, she's just gone all the time as is.
Yeah.
He's just really left on his own. She hates the dog. Like, and when hindsight, right? You get to the end and you understand what's been going on. You're like, oh, we see why she made the dog stay outside the entire time, because the cat hates the dog.
Right.
Not because Catherine hates the dog, because the cat hates the dog.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, but you feel bad for Trigger. He's just kept in this pen this whole time.
I know.
Evan doesn't care about him really. Catherine doesn't care about him. So he goes on his big adventure to eat some bullies. But that's me fast forwarding.
Oh, yeah. His really big adventure.
Plenty. So speaking of fast forwarding, we're jumping ahead. We're talking about the book. But when we left off last time, we said we were going to watch it first and read it second.
That's right. That's right.
So watching Monster Blood, both episodes. The first one, having not read it first, but just watching it, it's like, okay, it's fine. It felt rushed. Not enough time to build up a lot of story, but it got it done. Sarah Beth, in terms of her acting, I was dying. I was laughing so hard. Like, I get it. You were the cat plot, spoiler alert, Sarah Beth's the witch, and she's hiding in a cat body. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So she's literally like scratching her hair and like massaging her ear, licking her hand, and like hissing at the dog as a human. And it's like, we got it. You were the cat. I love that you're dedicated to the role, but it's really hard to take you seriously as an evil witch when you're still pawing at your head and like these invisible fleas.
They're the worst kind, by the way.
And she's actually a good actress. I've seen her in other stuffs.
Yeah.
Stuffs. I've seen her in other things, and she's decent. I just wonder who the hell gave her that direction, because it was madness. It's so hard to take it seriously as a scary, Goosebumps episode when this lady's pawing at her head and you have this like animated glump of goo bouncing behind her and this big superimposed dog looking through the window barking at her. I'm like, this is just pure comedy. Like, this isn't even I don't even think this, I don't even know what to say other than I'm laughing really hard at this entire setup.
It's fair. I think you had the appropriate response to everything that went down.
Yeah. I just felt like it was too much for what Monster Blood is. It felt like a very, 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 very short film where a lot of stuff was pulled away. Even if I hadn't read the book, I'm like, this is a very simple story.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
it's
because
happening way too fast.
they don't even find the monster blood at a toy store in the episode. They instead find it in Catherine's cabinet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, like there's so much that is if you're gonna redo the story, right? You're gonna make a loose interpretation of the story and make your own episode, fine.
Right.
But I feel like it could have been stronger. Like the fact that it's like stay out of this room and stay out of this cabinet, but leaves all of it unlocked and then takes off for the day. It's like, what? And so that was weird. I get what they were doing. Like she can't hear anything because she's constantly playing loud music and like being, a composer in her own conducting in her living room so she can't hear them. But it's like, why didn't they just keep her deaf?
So dumb. So dumb.
Yeah. So as a standalone watching the episode, I'm like, okay, they had fun with it. The kids sold it. They had, a good little rapport going. So fine. But it's still, even without knowing the story, which I tried not to, remember what I had read a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's like this still just feels really rushed and simple. And I like the second one better.
Yeah, I did too. I think we're going to run into that a lot though, because probably the episodes that aren't based on books will wind up being the best ones because they have more like carte blanche to tell the story that they want to tell.
I mean, they changed the story so much as is from the book. I feel like they should have just ran with that. Like completely just, if you're going to get away from it and deviate from the story, just go in, but be committed to what you are deviating to. So like the second one, not having the book, they were able to have fun with the idea of the monster blood, right? Like, oh no, it's taking over the whole place. Can we talk about how terrifying that is? Now that's actually scary. You have this thing that's growing and growing and growing and eating people, and you're 30,000 feet in the air, and it's just like, what's gonna happen?
This is like a mixture of The Blob and Twilight Zone and all these other things. It gave me so many good vibes watching the second part of this. More monster blood, as they called it.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. And I loved that, in the first one, they didn't have the bullies. They took away the characters of the Bamer brothers. But then you see a bully character introduced in the airplane one. And I'm like, okay, maybe they borrowed that a bit. But it was fun. 3 characters. You still have the one protagonist that ties them together. But it's now they're more so working together. And I don't know. I really liked the second one better.
I did too, actually. And it's funny because I remember back in the 90s watching the first part of this show. I don't have a lot of specific memories of watching the show because most of them I never saw. But I do remember watching Monster Blood and getting to that cliffhanger and not seeing the second part until now. So that was kind of a weird closure I didn't know I needed.
Yeah. And it was just like the kid they chose. He's a good actor. He did a decent job.
Yeah.
And so having him tie it together and be in the second episode, they chose just a fun cast. The lady who played the flight attendant did a great job.
Yeah.
I felt her pain of trying to keep these kids contained. But it was fun. I don't know. I just felt like it was a fun one. And they still left you on a cliffhanger at the end of this one, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, they did. They did. It was very well done. Well, I mean, I loosely put, it was well done. It's not winning any awards.
I mean, okay. For being a kids show in the 90s, that was a decent episode. The one in the airplane. I thought it was a good build up. It's short, right? But they
Mhm.
were able to create a moment in time that worked. And
Yep.
that's what I like. I think maybe that's where I have a harder time with the first one digesting it. Ha ha ha, pun intended, because Trigger eats it.
Aw.
That's where I have a harder time digesting it. Is I think they try to build up the world too much,
Yeah.
but then they simplify things in a way that it kind of is counterproductive to the buildup.
Mhm.
Whereas with this one, it's like, well, we already know what Monster Blood is. We know what it does. So this is just a moment in time within that world. And it worked. It
Yeah.
was a solid, complete moment from beginning to end.
I agree. This may be my favorite episode to date. So
Out of 3.
take that for
4
what it's worth.
out of 4. I'm with you though. I agree. Monster Blood,
More.
I think was my favorite too.
Yeah.
And there is a terror. What they created, there is a terror about being stuck in a plane with something that's actively eating people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've seen snakes on a plane.
Now, it was fun how they beat the Monster Blood on this one because we can all relate.
Yeah, feed it airplane food.
They're like, airplane food makes everybody sick, including Monster Blood. That was funny.
That was pretty good.
And how oblivious the captain is to everything.
I know.
Like, this whole thing's going down. His flight attendants have been gone for probably hours, and he doesn't even know. He's like, guys, we're going to be descending. Put your seatbelt on. And it's just like, what?
I mean, the physics of that don't even make sense. You have to assume that if all those people suddenly disappeared from the flight, it would handle differently, right?
Maybe he's having a good old time. He doesn't even notice.
He's just drinking. He's just the worst pilot.
In the 90s, that was probably a thing. Drinking whiskey on the rocks while the plane autopilots. Cigarettes, cigar. Hey, guys, playing poker and dominoes. Oh, time to descend. He's so oblivious. But yeah, I thought that was a fun one.
Yeah.
So with that said, back to the book. Having watched it first and then read the book later, how do you feel? Like, what do you think makes the book stronger?
The runtime. I mean, that's not the right word, but the fact that they could, tell more of a story in the however many pages the book was versus the tight 22-minute runtime. I also like the idea of getting it from the toy store more than just having it in a unlocked cabinet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the toy store makes it creepier because then you have the element of this antique shop and the spooky toy store owner. And then suddenly the next day when they're trying to give it back, he's gone and the store is closed down. And oh no, like, yes, that adds more spookiness because I think multiple R.L. Stine books have a spooky shop where they get stuff from.
Right.
And it just, as a kid, that's part of the fun, right? Going somewhere spooky where there's cobwebs and dust and, ooh, the creepy store owner. And everybody relates to that, like, creepiness. And so it does add more to the tension of the book when they take them to the shop versus, ooh, it's in her unlocked bedroom cabinet.
Yeah. I mean, plus, I feel like Toy Store just fits the theme so much better. It's clearly what could be presumed to be a toy. And, I don't know. I just want to talk about Wagner's Novelties and Sundries because to me, it feels like a place that seems familiar, because growing up as a kid, there were those kind of creepy little shops all over the place. And maybe it says more about where I grew up, but I think that's just a fun little detail. And also, I can't get enough of the word sundries. Just throwing that out there.
Sundries is a fun word. Novelties and sundries. There's still shops like that. And I'll even admit, as an adult, I see those and I have to go in and worm around. And I think the kid inside of me is still like, ooh, what's haunted? What's going to be, what's going to come alive? Monster blood. And it's fun. It's fun to roam around those stores and see things of the past, novelties covered in dust, like, ooh, what's carrying like a curse? I don't know.
It's just such a fun plot device. It's descriptive and it's enjoyable.
I completely agree with you. And the fact that you have a creepy shop owner.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Wagner.
Because it'd be different if it was just some like 13-year-old, right? Or not 13, but like some 17-year-old, like, yeah, I'm here on my, summer vacation selling stuff. No, it's got to be the creepy shop owner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what adds to the element of suspense is that he won't sell it to them to begin with.
Right.
Like he's refusing and trying to get them to buy something different.
Mm-hmm.
And finally he's like, okay, $2, but no refunds. Which, is it reverse psychology? He's trying to get them to buy it? Or was he really trying to keep it out of their hands?
Oh, I think it's reverse psychology. You tell a kid they can't buy something, they're going to want it more.
Yeah.
At least
and he's like, they're probably thinking it's like 50 cents and he's like $2.
Oh man, I got to get 8 more quarters.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I liked that. I feel like to your point, 20 minutes of a show versus 128 pages or something like that of a book, you definitely get more time to play in that world. And the store experience alone, that chapter alone, it just is good fun, good creepy tension fun.
Yes, I agree.
Now, what I also like is that Catherine recognized the monster blood right away.
Yeah.
Creepy, crazy, eccentric aunt who makes zero sense, like whispers, be careful. Like if that happened, wouldn't you as a kid take that really seriously? Because she's been crazy. And all of a sudden she's just like snapped to her senses and she's like, hey, be careful, okay? And then back to her crazy self. I would pay attention to that warning more so than, well, apparently maybe 12-year-old me may not have, but
I'm trying to put myself in 12-year-old Gary mind. Would I have paid more attention, or would I have been like, clearly she doesn't want me to have fun?
12-year-old me was really into like horror and reading about like Egyptian lore and stuff like that. So I probably would have taken it very seriously and be like, it's possessed.
Yeah, I was fresh out of Egyptian lore as a 12-year-old, so that
I was a weird kid.
No, I'm not. That would definitely put some thought into the situation or some concern.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of scary movies, which gets me into trouble these days because it's like my imagination goes into overdrive. Right. But in that instance, I probably would have listened to her and I'd be like, you take it. I don't want it.
Here, Aunt Catherine, you can have it. $3. Turn a profit.
$3, whatever. I'd be like, $5, Aunt Catherine. I do feel like there was a not a plot hole, but there was like a thread left dangling in the TV show that didn't occur in the book, I don't think. When she makes them cookies and she's trying to make them eat these weird cookies and is acting all evil, ominous about it.
Oh, yeah.
They eat the cookies. And there was like, if you notice, there was a lot of emphasis in the sound and the shot setup that like we're supposed to be paying attention to this weird moment. And he actually eats the cookie. Nothing comes of that. And I was just like, I feel like that was a thing. But
might have been,
they left it dangling.
Yeah, I left it on the cutting room floor. An extra 2 minutes of story time. I don't know. I really wish that I could talk to someone who was a part of the creative team for these episodes, just to be like, so what was left on the cutting room floor? Like, what did you plan for? And then you had to backtrack and then just put it in a closet. Like it's, I mean, was there more to the story initially and then you had to change it for censors or for runtime or, what's the deal?
Yeah, someone cookie cut that episode. So, see what I did there? I wish they had not cut the trigger emphasis because in the book, trigger was a very important part of the book.
Yeah.
As a kid, 12-year-old whose dog is doubling in size, he is distressed. Like he takes the dog to the vet. It showed more love for Trigger. It showed the importance of Trigger so that when Trigger comes to save the day, like it's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And that was completely just like gone in the TV episode. Trigger's there one moment and gone the next with a big footprint. And then they seem to just forget it. Like, oh, okay, he's fine. We'll find him later.
Yeah.
Like, what? He didn't care about his dog,
No.
which wasn't Evan. That wasn't
Mhm.
his character. Like in the book, he loved his dog.
Yeah.
He was mad that he had to put his dog outside. He was stressed when he was worried about Trigger and taking him to the vet and calling his mom. And Trigger was like his buddy. And the
Mhm.
fact that in the TV episode, he's just like, screw Trigger. He's off on his big adventure. Bye, Trigger. Like, I don't know. They should have done better by Evan and Trigger.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I do have to say that that's one of the worst vets I've ever heard of. Like if you take your pet to a vet and it's doubled in size and it's like 14 years old or whatever he said, it's like, I don't know. I would throw a little more caution.
So playing devil's advocate, he got all of Trigger's blood work back and he was fine. He was healthy.
True.
I would think as a vet, when a 12-year-old comes and says my dog is doubled in size, you're probably going to think the kid's embellishing a little bit or exaggerating.
Right.
And so it's just like, oh yeah, doubled, huh? And so I think maybe as an adult, it was just one of those examples of adults not listening to kids and thinking kids are exaggerating.
Yeah, yeah. And it does work that he did not see Trigger previously, so he doesn't realize how much he's grown. But it's strange because you would think as he's looking through the blood work, you'd be like, cholesterol levels are good. That's good. Monster blood. Why is that checked? I don't know.
Monster blood. But maybe the monster blood affected the DNA and not the blood.
Intriguing.
And they're not doing cellular level testing. So
that's
this
true.
Is blood work, man. They're like, that's Trigger, true. You're not fat. But I don't think they checked the DNA on that. So then, was it me or did anybody else secretly hope that Trigger was going to eat the bullies?
No, I was disappointed when he did not.
I was hoping, like they led you to think that. I know that was intentional to make you think that Trigger ate the bullies, but then he didn't. But I'm like, I kind of wish he had, because this is the first book where actual bullying is introduced.
That's
and
true.
We're not talking light bullying. Like they actually beat him up physically, punching him and hurting him in Andy's yard.
Right.
And that was kind of sad. That moment when that happens, I was just like, wow, we're no longer in silly, fun, slimy, oozy, monster blood land. Like this is a real moment where this kid got beat to a pulp and they're describing the pain that he felt. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this just got real, RL. I almost kind of wonder if he was writing from experience, but
I mean, possibly.
It was brutal.
It was brutal. Bullying was huge in the 90s.
Yeah, I feel like with this one, because it is such a silly, fun premise, and this is supposed to be Goosebumps with a little bit of terror, I find it interesting that his terror didn't necessarily come from the ooze component, the monster blood component. It came from the real life component.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, right? Like he did a twist. He's like, you're not scared of my monster, but here is something scary.
Right.
Because it wasn't little bullying. Like they shoved Andy off her bike and she actually got hurt and they stole her bike. They beat him to a pulp on Andy's yard. Those are very real, scary things. And so I did find that interesting that for RL in the book, I don't know if that was his intention. I kind of have to believe it was, that he knew it was goofy and silly enough that there did need to be some component that did make it scary. And isn't the real stuff oftentimes scarier? Like reality is oftentimes scarier. So
yeah, absolutely. We go to media, we go to things of this nature for levity. And this book is I'd say 90% levity, 10% like, whoa.
Exactly.
It kind of hits where it needs to.
I like, whoa.
It's a technical
term.
It did.
And like you said, it hits where it needs to. So you did have your creepy aspects with the Wagner sundries, novelties and sundries. But then you have your reality of this is scary.
Yeah.
This is scary. He is being bullied. This is scary that they are being terrorized by these two twins that are out being awful little human beings. But then we have him almost being sucked into the monster blood in the tub, which I thought was great. I love that they kept that in the TV episode because that scene is creepy fun. It's all good creepy fun. Like, is it going to eat him up? So that was fun. Glad they kept that. I wish they had kept the scene with the monster blood coming down the driveway and bumping down the, the street to eat the bully and coming after Catherine. I'm sure that would have taken a lot more animation in Photoshop,
and let's be honest, what they had wasn't great in the first place, so it would have probably looked pretty bad.
I don't think the monster blood was that bad. I mean, obviously it looked fake, especially coming from a 2023 lens, but was it the worst? Nah. It's better than some of the other ones we saw in the previous episodes.
This is true.
In terms of effects, special effects, digital effects.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that definitely preferred the book over the TV episode. Although I did enjoy the part 2, the more monster blood episode.
So yeah, this is going to be a weird one to rate because I liked the book more than the first episode, but I think I like the second episode more than the book, which is I don't know how to
hold up. You like the second episode more than the book?
I think so. I liked the book, but I was the least impressed by this one of all three so far.
Yeah, if I had to rate books up like from just the first 3 that we've done so far, this is definitely not, my top.
Yeah, and it's funny that this became the series for Goosebumps. There's 4 numerically named Monster Blood books, and then there's even more beyond that.
How many? There's like Monster Blood 7 and all sorts of stuff, right?
There are 6 books in total. Monster Blood 1, 2, 3, 4, Monster Blood for Breakfast, and Monster Blood is Back. So it's been a very long running part of the Goosebumps series. And
it's made cameos in some of the other Goosebumps books.
Right.
So that's interesting. Like the creature itself has, or the monster, would you call it a creature? Let's dive into that for a moment. Is Monster Blood a creature? Is it like a sentient thing?
It seems to be. It seems to know what it's doing, or is it just acquiring to live? I don't know exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it sentient in terms of it's got thoughts and awareness, or to your point, is it just a survival consuming kind of thing?
I kind of like the idea of it just being a survival consuming kind of thing.
Kind of like a virus or something.
Yeah.
A parasite.
Right. Because if it's sentient and it knows, it's like, hey, those bullies are jerks, I'm going to eat them. It's like, is it intentional in who it eats? Because that feels it feels both more confusing and less exciting to me.
I think it was indiscriminate in terms of who it eats, because it was trying to eat Catherine and it was trying to eat Evan, and it was going after everything. So I think it might be indiscriminate, but I'm just trying to figure out, is it because as I think out loud here.
Do it.
Because if it was sentient, oh shoot, are worms sentient?
They have 3 brains, I believe.
Because you think about worms, you cut them in half and then they're like, ooh, separate worms. Because the monster blood was separated into 2 different containers. Andy took half, Evan took half, and theirs individually were growing and consuming. Mm-hmm. And so
it's like,
would that then be 1 turned into 2, like a worm, and yet they're still sentient, but they don't care what they're eating. They're just like, nom, 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 I must eat.
I like the idea of that, but I also don't know how aware worms are of anything, right? Like I've never spoken to one. The only
I just thought of the labyrinth.
Oh.
Come inside, have a cup of tea, meet the missus.
Yeah, the best I've got is like Earthworm Jim, and he had a great personality, so I don't know.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would consider it a creature, but to be a creature, then it would kind of need to be semi-sentient, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because in the airplane episode, it seemed a little more sentient, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was aware and looking for motion and consuming and coming after them and kind of strategizing. But in the first one, I think it was just more like, num, 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 feed me cookies.
Right. It gained awareness when it learned to fly.
Or maybe the more living beings that it
Oh.
consumes, the more awareness it consumes. So maybe it's kind of like Rogue,
Yeah.
it's like absorbing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh. We're going to have to see. Well, when we read more of the Monster Bloods, we'll see what does it evolve as. Because in the book, the first book, it didn't really seem to be that sentient, right? Because it also seemed to be controlled by Sarah Beth a bit.
Right. That confused me a little bit.
Yeah, it was like under her spell. But in the TV episodes, especially part 2, I mean, there's no Sarah Beth there to control it. So I don't know.
Nor do I.
You know what I find interesting? When it eats things, those things don't get possessed or grow. They just get consumed. But when things consume it, they grow and become like monster-sized versions of themselves.
Yeah, that is true.
Because Trigger ate it and the ant ate it and it got huge.
And then for them to just be able to reappear once the monster blood is destroyed, you know, where are they in that time? Are they in purgatory? Are they inside the ooze? How are they still alive? There's too many questions.
Yeah, because you don't see them floating around in it. Like, it's pretty, like, jello-y, blobby, neon glowing, and there's nothing that seems to... Like, you think it'd be like those jello that have fruit inside that you could see those dessert dishes. Like, there's something floating in there in its form, but it just doesn't seem... You don't see it at all. And then suddenly it disappears, and they're like, oh, I'm back. Like the guy that was happy and found his computer. That's what he's worried about. He's not stressed. I was just eating. He's like, oh, my computer. And it's saved. Like, really?
Maybe he just, once monster blood consumes you, you're transported to like a mirror dimension of some sort. And he didn't even realize that he had been consumed by a monster blood.
But they asked the bully kid, what was it like? And he said it was like being inside of a big nose. And I'm like, ew.
What a 90s thing to say.
So you're like in Frozen and snot, but I don't know. It's not very appetizing.
Alternate title for this episode, Frozen and Snot.
I'm down with it. Frozen and Snot.
Frozen and Snot. Yeah, I'm looking at the wiki. The monster blood creature has its own wiki, and I love the fact that under general information, the status is alive and the alignment is evil.
I love that they put that there. Status is alive, alignment evil.
Yes. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the journey will be in the sequels for sure.
But let's get philosophical. Why is it evil?
I don't think it is.
It's just consuming to stay alive.
Right. It's for the same reason that, like you said earlier, a virus is not evil. Neither is monster blood. The humans are kind of a virus, and we're not evil.
Well,
some of us are.
But it's just doing its thing, in my opinion. It's growing and it's consuming to continue the growing, which sounds like anything else that's alive. So I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know if I'd call it evil. It's not like it's like, ooh, must eat little children and dogs, and I will not eat evil witches. Like, it ate the witch too, so...
It's true. It's true. All right, so whoever is doing the editing on the goosebumps.fandom.com with your Monster Blood wiki, write in and let us know why you think the blood is evil.
Maybe it's neutral. Affiliation alignment is neutral. Alignment, Gryffindor. So
independent.
Independent. Exactly. Because, I mean, it really isn't. Like, it was just chilling in its can, right? They're the ones that opened it. And it's like, ooh, time to grow. Woo! And it just did its thing.
Yep. So for just a minute, I want to talk about the book cover for this, particularly the 1992 cover, because the 2008 cover is not good. This is one of Tim Jacobus's covers, and it sets you up so well for what you're about to get into, even if that particular scene never happens in the book.
Although I suppose it kind of happens in the TV episode.
It does, and it's a callback to that.
I like the callback because it does come down the stairs and they're having to scoop it up.
Mm-hmm.
I never caught that until just now. I'm like, wait, that did happen in the episode.
And
you're right.
In the more Monster Blood episode, whenever the dude in the bathroom disappears, his glasses are left covered in ooze on the floor, which is also an homage to the cover, I think.
Oh, look at you finding all the little Easter egg nods. I love it.
Yeah, there weren't a lot, but I found both of them, I think.
Yeah, this specifically was not in the book, but I mean, at some point the ooze is all over the house, and
Right.
you know, whether it's coming in the front door trying to eat Catherine or going and out through the room. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you found those nods. That's awesome. I didn't catch that. So that is the one thing I will say with Catherine. I did find it a sweet little cleanup for her when she got her hearing back once Sarah Beth was gotten rid of. I was like, oh, that's cute. Look, they let her hear again.
Yeah.
I did like the scene. I will say this in the episode when she walks into Sarah Beth doing all her witchcraft in the room, and it's just like, oh, she's like cool leather jacket, torn jeans, just like getting down. I'm like, you make witchcraft look kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a thing.
She's the fifth member of the craft.
I mean, light as a feather. But wasn't Aunt Catherine also a witch before she met Sarah Beth? Weren't they witches together?
I think so, yeah.
Because in the TV episode, they make it seem like Aunt Catherine wasn't a witch, and then she stumbled upon Sarah Beth doing witchcraft, and then it went from there, and she was Sarah Beth's slave.
Right.
I was like, I thought in the book they both were. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they both were witches together, but then Sarah Beth got evil and took over.
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Yeah. I do like their little love story they tried to give Evan on the airplane with the cute little blonde. Call
Right.
me if you need some friends. I know what it's like being new. I'm like, girl, props to you. You shot your shot, and he's feeling it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I was feeling it. I was like, man.
Little romance. Or else given, or actually, since that was the TV episode, he wasn't kidding. It seemed like, though, they were giving Andy and Evan a little bit of kind of a romance vibe in the book.
Yeah, it did. And I believe Andy comes back in later books, so we'll see if they follow through with that.
Ooh, well, they better not follow through too much. They're only 12.
Well, maybe they'll be 13 in the next one. I don't know.
Whoa. And we all know what happens at 13.
No, tell me.
Holding hands. No, tell me. This is a family show, Gary.
Supervised trips to the mall.
PG-13. Real little kiss on the cheek. That's right.
Whew.
How do you feel about the casting of Aunt Catherine? I thought she was creepy as hell, so I think they did well.
Yeah, they did very good. I think pretty much everybody in this episode was decent. Like, and most of them are actors and things since. So, yeah, I mean, this was definitely one of the better cast episodes.
Yeah, I wish they kept the bullies because I felt that was a really important storyline for the book in terms of the TV episode. But, you know, it's okay. Stand alone. If I hadn't read the book beforehand, it's fine. And especially for like 11, 12-year-olds, I'm sure it's a fun, not too heavy episode. Yeah. And maybe that's why they took it out. Maybe they didn't want to show bullying like that on TV at that point in time. Although I feel like bullying was displayed a lot during that time on TV, but maybe they didn't want to go that route. They wanted to keep it light. But I do think in terms of book to TV episode, just episode 1, since that was, you know, based off of the book is way better. But if we're talking all 3, the plane episode was pretty fun. I think I still like the book better because of how real it got with the bullying and stuff like that. But it held its own better. It stood up to it better.
What you said about the fact that the monster is not the monster so much as real life is the monster actually kind of makes me like the book a little bit more than I did initially. And, who knows if that was his intention or not, but I think that's a really fun takeaway. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you for pointing out the Easter eggs in the cover being placed in the episodes. Yeah, and I like the way you put that. The monster's not the monster. The bullies are the monster. The being thrown into the unknown, parents that are just like, sorry, we got a job. Go stay with an aunt you barely know. Go basically stay with the stranger. Mm-hmm. And your comfort character, his dog, is now being thrown out of the house and he's infected by something. Like, those are the terror. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that are actually scary. The monster of the ooze, the monster blood, like, that's actually the comedic relief.
Right. And don't forget that the U.S. economy is also a monster in this, because that store is there and then it's gone.
I think it was gone because it sold the monster blood. Oh, no. That's been its whole thing all along. It wanted to get rid of the monster blood. Then it didn't want to be held accountable for what happened when the monster blood ate the whole town. Because the guy knew. The old shopkeeper's like, I know what's happening here.
I can see what's happening.
Yeah, I'm not going to be eaten by that thing. I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm going to Puerto Rico. I don't think monster blood can swim. We got this.
Oh, man, that's the 5th book. Mr. Wagner's just chilling on a beach.
Monster blood just comes up.
Yep. Hey, RL, I got ideas.
We got so many ideas. Monster blood goes to space. What happens if monster blood comes up against a black hole? They both consume and consume and consume.
It's a green hole.
It's a green hole. Oh, that sounds like a golf term. I don't do golf, Gary. Oh, do we have any last thoughts about monster blood?
I think that will conclude our thoughts on, well, obviously it's going to conclude our thoughts on the episodes because there are no more, but we got 3 more books to talk about. So we'll definitely, save some thoughts for later.
We'll definitely circle back to the blood that is of the monsters.
Variety.
Monster varietal.
I get that magazine.
Me too. All right, everybody. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to Listeners Beware, a podcast about all things Goosebumps. Are you looking for more spooky podcast content? Check out 3 Haunted Podcast, where Ashley and friends talk about all things that give you goosebumps.
And if you want to hear more from me, that's not so spooky, but still nostalgic, check out Wax Nostalgic Network, wherever podcasts and YouTube videos are available.
What's the next book?
The next book. Oh, guess what? Guess what? We talked about the acting in this one. This next episode has a very famous actor in it. But we are going to be diving into Say Cheese and Die.
Ooh, I'm on pins and needles. I can barely wait.
Same. I'm actually really excited about this one.
I really like this one too, especially because I grew up with like photography and doing photography. So super excited to talk about it in 2 weeks. Until then, I'm Ashley.
And I am Gary.
Until next time. He's just really left on his own.
Mm-hmm. Just hanging out with his creepy aunt's cat. Catherine cat.
Her name is Catherine, so creepy aunt cat and her evil cat. Yeah.
No, I think that will put a pin in. Hold on. What? A double-sized Cocker Spaniel would be okay. Whereas gigantic in the episode, double-sized Border Collie takes himself to the bed.
They're like Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah, right. He goes and lives with Emily Elizabeth for a while.
At least his thyroid's good.
I mean, there's 4 numerically named Monster Blood books, and then there's even more beyond that.
Yeah, how many? There's like Monster Blood 7 and all sorts of stuff, right?
Monster Blood Takes Manhattan.
Jason took it in his pocket. Oh, man.